Hey everyone, happy Halloween. Yes, we know it's a bit early, but this is the first of a several part story called What If the Pokemon World Had a Zombie Apocalypse, in which we will explore the implications of a zombie apocalypse hitting the Pokemon world.
However, we wouldn't have been able to complete this massive undertaking without the help of our friends, and so I want to give a special thanks to Plus Ultraman for designing and creating the art of the zombies, and Rune Scribble for lending her voice to a certain someone you'll see later on.
But enough with us boring you to death. Let's get on to scaring you to death.
So sit back, relax if you can, and enjoy Chapter 1, Genesis.
Our story begins in the sleepy town of Postwick with the boy laying on the roof as he looks up at the stars. Overhead, a flock of Hoot-Hoot fly by, bound for parts unknown. As he watches them go, Hop can't help but feel a stab of jealousy, wishing he could explore the world like them. While he loves his home, Postwick isn't exactly a hub of excitement, with the most thrilling thing that happens being whenever his big brother Leon comes to see everyone. This thought puts a frown on Hop's face, as Lee hasn't been home or even called in about a fortnight. Ever since he got back from Kanto, he and Charizard hadn't looked so good back then, even if Lee had simply waved it off as jet lag. Suddenly, something draws Hop's attention from his reverie, a shooting star, and knowing that this could be his chance to get a wish, he closes his eyes tight and begins to think. While his first thought is for Lee and Charizard to get better, he quickly dismisses this, figuring that as strong as they are, they could beat any allergy that might come their way. Nah, if this is his wish, then he's gonna wish for something exciting to happen. For a moment, Hop waits, as if expecting his wish to come true that very second. Though when it doesn't, and the voice of his mother from inside the house calls for him to go to bed, he climbs down through his window and bunks down for the night. Waking up the following morning, Hop is met with the sound of silence. Total silence. A rare sound indeed, as normally the mornings are abuzz with the baaing of Wooloo and the chirping of Rookidee. Figuring he'll ask his mum about this, the boy makes his way downstairs. Though, in a further surprise, he finds that the house seems to be entirely deserted. Tentatively, Hop calls out to his mum, though, as expected, he receives no answer, with him quickly making his way over to a window to see if she might be out in the garden. Unfortunately, this is a vain effort, as with the morning being a foggy one, Hop can barely see a foot out the window, forcing the boy to step through the front door and call out once more for his mother. This time at least, Hop does receive a response, though not from his dear old mum, instead being greeted by a chilling howl, as if from some predatory Pokemon, followed by another that raises to harmonize with the first, causing a tingle of terror to run down the young man's spine. From the sound of it, whatever made those noises is close, a fact which is confirmed a moment later by the crunching of gravel as an unknown number of heavy paws pad their way toward him. Then he sees them, 4 glowing yellow eyes blazing through the mists, which give way to reveal a pair of fearsome, lupine faces unlike any Pokemon Hop has ever seen before. Heart hammering in his chest at the sight of these unfamiliar and out-of-place creatures as they continue to advance toward him, Hop does the only thing that he can think of and turns tail, fleeing in the opposite direction while desperately searching for answers to what the heck is going on. Stumbling through the seemingly unending fog, Hop doesn't dare call out again for fear that those Pokemon will find him, instead simply running as fast as he can until suddenly he feels something land on his shoulder. Turning his head, he sees a Squovit, though in what can only be called par for the course on such a weird day as today, it doesn't look right, having milky eyes and a feral, rabid quality to the way it hisses and scratches at him. Letting out a yelp, Hop pulls out the one and only Pokeball from his belt, calling forth his buddy Wooloo and pleading with it to help him out. Bawing in the affirmative, Wooloo leaps up and slams into Squovit, dislodging it from Hop's shoulder, with the boy sighing in relief when it does not fight back.
In fact, it seems that Hop's luck is starting to turn around, as with a sigh of relief he finally clears the fog, discovering that in his panic, he's run most of the way to Wedgehurst. Figuring he might as well check in with the smartest person he knows, Professor Magnolia, to see if she knows what's going on, Hop with Wooloo by his side makes his way to the professor's lab. Like back home, everything is quiet, though as the boy enters the lab, he hears something, a low snarling, similar to that of a scared Pokemon. Not wanting to spook whatever creature the prof might be studying, Hop returns Wooloo to its ball, and slowly makes his way to the main section of the lab, his eyes peeled for Pokemon. However, all he finds inside is Magnolia herself, hunched over and facing away from him. Tentatively, Hop calls out to the old woman, greeting her and beginning to ask if she's alright, though he barely gets through half a sentence before Magnolia pounces on him with a snarl, pinning him to a nearby workbench. Letting out a terrified yell, Hop attempts to push the researcher off him, though to his surprise, he cannot manage it, with the old woman staying firmly on top of him, her eyes milky like the squavets, and her face twisted in a perverse leer as she attempts to bite at him. Struggling desperately to not let this happen, Hop reaches back, his hand blindly searching for something heavy. Then, as his fingers close around what he suspects is a microscope, he says a silent prayer to Arceus, and swings.
Blimey, I've killed the prof!
Don't worry, Hop, it's not the first time it's happened today.
Peering around in search of the voice, Hop spots Sonia, Magnolia's granddaughter and assistant, huddled under a table, and having had enough uncertainty to last him a lifetime, asks what she's talking about. Crawling out from her hiding spot, Sonia explains that last night her gran passed away, and while it was heartbreaking to lose such a great woman, it was even more confusing when she got back up this morning like nothing had happened. Unfortunately, as he saw, Gran wasn't herself anymore, snarling and biting at anyone who got near, with the old dame even taking a chunk out of her when she tried to calm her down. To prove the veracity of this statement, Sonia then shows Hop her forearm, which now sports a nasty-looking bite wound, stating that after she took a nibble, her gran sort of lost interest in her, though all the same, she was waiting until the coast was clear to make a getaway. Concern in his tone, Hop asked where Sonia had been planning to go, with the young woman admitting she hadn't thought that far ahead, though anywhere would be better than here. Nodding his agreement, Hop suggests that in that case they should go see Lee together, since surely if anyone would know what's going on and how to fix it, it'd be the unbeatable champ. Having no better plan, Sonia tells Hop to follow her out back, since it'll be quicker to take her car, a claim which makes the boy gulp, knowing how reckless a driver Sonia tends to be, though he supposes in this case speed will be an asset, so perhaps it's for the best. Unfortunately, like so many of Hop's ideas today, this is incorrect, since while the first few hours aren't too bad, with no one on the road to get in their way, as time wears on, Sonia begins to fatigue, a layer of flop sweat forming on her brow, while her driving becomes more and more erratic. Worried for his friend's well-being, Hop suggests that maybe they should stop for a quick break, though to his horror, the only response he gets is a growl, the same as the one he got from Magnolia.
Looking over at the driver's seat, he sees Sonia's eyes have gone milky, and as if responding to the motion of his head turning, she lets go of the wheel, lunging at him with the feral intensity her grandmother and Squovet had. Fortunately, or perhaps unfortunately, depending on your point of view, Sonia is never able to complete her attack, as due to her have taken her hands off the wheel, but not her feet off the pedal, the car has veered wildly off course, striking a tree on the side of the road, and sending her soaring through the windshield in what can only be called a most unpleasant manner. As for Hop, he is miraculously still within the cabin, having inadvertently caused his seatbelt to tighten prematurely when he jerked back from Sonia, thus saving his life, even if his chest feels like it had just endured a kick from a Caparaja. Frantically unbuckling with numb fingers, Hop leaps out to check on Sonia, though it seems it is already too late, with the young man having no choice but to continue on to Wyndon alone and by foot. In an attempt to not feel so lonely, Hop brings out his Wooloo, with the little fluff ball proving good company, even noticing an abandoned Corviknight taxi and bringing it to the attention of his trainer. Seeing no signs of the cabbie, Hop carefully makes his way to the taxi with Wooloo by his side, ready to go on the attack if it turns out Corviknight has the same illness as the Squovet from earlier. Thankfully, when they get close, they see Corviknight's eyes are as red as ever, with the bird giving them an inquisitive tilt of its head as if asking where they would like to go. Figuring that maybe steel types are unaffected by this crazy illness due to their immunity to poison, Hop decides to hitch a ride, clambering into the cabin with Wooloo and instructing Corviknight to take them to Wyndon. By the time they have reached Wyndon, night has well and truly fallen, though for the most part everything looks normal with the city's skyline still glowing like some luminescent gem as Hop drifts above. Taking this as a good sign, the young man directs Corviknight to drop him off outside of Rose Tower, with him giving the bird his thanks as he and Wooloo leap out and head into the building. Stepping inside, Hop finds the reception desk deserted, though truthfully he hardly pays this any mind, having already ran over to the elevator and punched in the command for the penthouse. That's where Lee likes to hang out, and after everything he's had to endure to get here, Hop isn't going to slow down for even a second. The view from the elevator is glorious as always, calming Hop's racing heart, since if everything is normal here, then maybe whatever's wrong is just located in his home area. This thought comes with a darker one Hop has been trying to ignore, that this whole thing started after he made that wish last night. What if he caused everything to go wrong? What if all of that's happened today is his fault? Weighed down by this feeling of guilt and worry, Hop almost doesn't notice when the elevator door slides open, though he can hardly fail to catch what happens next as a hand shoots through the opening, attempting to claw at him.
Leaping back with a shriek, Hop recognizes the hand, and the person to whom it is attached is his brother, though as he had feared, when he looks into Lee's eyes, they're like Sonia and the Profs. Knowing how unwise it is to be trapped in a confined space with one of the infected, Hop does the only thing he can, apologizing profusely as he shoulder barges past Lee, while Wooloo rolls between the champ's legs. Unfortunately, the room the pair find themselves in isn't any better, as it turns out that Leon isn't the only one who's infected. His entire team have those milky eyes and rabbit expressions, though none is worse than Charizard, who has taken on a necrotic look, as if it is in the process of decaying. As one, the 6 Pokemon along with their trainer all begin advancing on Hop and Wooloo, encircling the pair while snarling hungrily, their hands and paws outstretched, while thick putrid-smelling saliva runs from their open mouths. Knowing that staying here will mean certain death, Hop does the only thing he can when faced with hostile Pokemon. Battle, ordering Wooloo to attack them with a Thunder Wave, hoping it can slow their advance long enough for the two of them to make their escape. However, it seems that the paralyzing power of this move has no effect on the shambling Pokemon, as they continue to encircle the boy and his partner, with Hop deciding to take a more offensive stance by calling for a tackle. Bleating fiercely, Wooloo throws itself at Lee's Mr. Rime as the nearest Pokemon, though in a moment of panic, Hop realizes how foolish this is, yelling it to back up, just before Mr. Rime's true mouth, the one camouflaged on its stomach, can take a bite out of the sheep Pokemon. Thankfully, Wooloo is quick, rolling back and narrowly avoiding the bite, while Hop likewise has to jump away from his brother, who lunges at him once again. However, it seems the claws and teeth are not the only things Hop and Wooloo have to be afraid of, as at that moment, Inteleon erratically lets loose a Dark Pulse, blasting friend and foe alike, with several of Lee's Pokemon snarling as they are struck, while Wooloo lets out an agonized scream, being far weaker than a champion-trained Pokemon. Ducking to avoid the Umbral Blast himself, Hop tries to soothe his partner, though before he can say much, he feels sharp claws digging into his back, as he is lifted into the air by Charizard. Letting out a primal hissing shriek like something out of a nightmare, Charizard then begins pulling Hop into its maw, evidently eager to take a bite. And though the boy tries to struggle, nothing can break the grip of Lee's ace. Then, a shooting pain runs up Hop's side, followed by another as he crashes into the wall-sized window and goes sliding onto the marble floor. For a moment he fears that he has been bit, before realizing the sensation was not one of piercing, but instead of being tackled. Whipping his head around to where Charizard had been, Hop is horrified to see that Wooloo has taken his place in its clutches, having evidently tackled him to safety but gotten its wool caught in the fire-type's talons as it did. Furiously, Hop orders Charizard to put Wooloo down, desperately appealing to any small part of the beast that might remember who he is and their history together, though it seems whatever part of Charizard held its memories is long gone, with one victim being as good as any other so long as it can dig its fangs in. The sound Wooloo makes when it is bit is more horrifying than anything Hop has experienced today, and when Charizard drops it to the ground, he calls for it, pleading for the little sheep to be alright. However, to his horror, Wooloo is unresponsive, its eyes glassy as it lies still. By now the Horde have refocused their attention on Hop, as the only one unafflicted, and knowing he cannot grab Wooloo while it's in the midst of them, he pulls out its ball with a shaking hand, hysterically yelling at it to return as red light shoots from the orb. Unfortunately, it seems that this is something it cannot do, as when the beam strikes Wooloo, it does not turn the normal type into red light, instead simply dissipating, as if the ball no longer recognizes Wooloo. Or worse, like something has changed in its data that makes it unable to be returned, such as a variable changing from alive to dead.
Regrettably, Hop has no time to reflect on this, nor does he have any time to do anything for Wooloo as the monsters are nearly upon him. And so, saying a silent apology to his fallen friend, he scrambles to his feet and runs for the only exit not currently being blocked, the stairwell to the emergency exit. Bursting through the doorway, Hop rushes down the stairs, 2 at a time, his mind still too gripped by horror to notice the burning of his legs or the tearing of his lungs. None of that matters, except for getting as far away from the penthouse as possible. Tears stinging his eyes as he descends, the sounds of Wooloo's cries still ring in his ears. His best friend had done everything to protect him, and in the end, he couldn't even save it. What kind of Pokemon trainer is he? Finally, he reaches the ground floor and flings himself through the doorway back into the street, the cold night air hitting him like a slap. Eyes wild, he looks around for someone who can help him. Anyone, though, as his eyes pass over the faces of Pokemon and people in the street, he sees them for what they are. More of those shambling monsters with not another unaffected person in sight. Somehow, this sickness has spread across all of Galar, and though Hop doesn't know how or why, he does know one thing: he cannot fight it. All he can do is run for his life, and so, he does.
And that's where we'll leave things for now, though in truth this is only just the beginning, as we have many more stories to tell set in this zombie-ravaged Pokemon world.
The next one will be on my channel, which will be on October 17th, so be sure to check it out, and while you're there, don't forget to subscribe to me and Pickled Dill, as we will be alternating parts all the way up to Halloween.
But until then, we'll catch you when the journey continues.
And remember, beware of things that go bump in the night.